Welcome, everybody, to the Baloney podcast. We are so excited and very grateful that you are joining us on this journey. We're going to have a lot of fun. We got a lot of stories to tell and just a lot of truth and wisdom. So thank you for spending a little bit of your day with us.
Yeah.
Why the bologna? Well, because back in the day, all we could afford were bologna sandwiches, and we had a bologna sandwich mindset. But now we are blessed to be a blessing, and we are giving you strategies for your life.
Yeah, we used to do the bologna sandwiches, but now we live in that filet mignon life. You know what I'm saying? And we want to help you guys experience breakthrough in any area of your life where you feel stuck in a season that's been limiting you. And any limiting beliefs that may be on you or your family that's hindering you guys from growing to the next level. Like, we're going to help you identify those things over the course of this first season of the podcast. And then we're going to all grow together to get to everything that we were created to be. And that's our passion. We want to see everybody excel and to become all that you were meant to be, that God designed you to be. And so that's what this is all about.
Yeah. So get ready, get some popcorn, maybe get a notebook or two, because we got a lot that we just want to give to you, especially in this first episode. Yeah.
And so back in the day, y'all, we moved into our first place. That's where we actually want to start. When we moved into our first place, it was an interesting experience because this was really the beginning of life on our own. And at that time, we had our son, Brandon, and we were 18 in St. Louis, Missouri, which is where we from. Come on, show me state, baby. You know what I mean? Blue. What y'all know about the St. Louis Blues? Blue. What y'all know about them Cardinals?
What you know?
What y'all know about the Arch?
What you know?
What y'all know about some Emo's Pizza, you know what I'm saying? Some Red Hot Riplets.
White Castle.
Some White Castle.
Oh, no, I got a good one for you. Vest soda.
Okay, some Vest sodas, baby.
Vest soda.
All this stuff is unhealthy, but it is great. But that's where we're from. And our first place was actually in the hood. And it was
on St. Louis, or off of St. Louis Avenue.
Off of St. Louis Avenue. We were in the hood, but that was all we could afford at that time. And y'all, it was only $250 a month. And it was a struggle.
To have a $250 rent.
Oh, please. I would dominate. But back then, man, we were really struggling. And so that place was like a breakthrough for us. And we got into it, and it was a shotgun apartment. And I mean, meaning you could stand on one end and you could look all the way to the other end of the apartment. And you had a bedroom that went right into the little living room, and then went directly to our little bathroom, and then into the kitchen, which, by the way, didn't have a stove or refrigerator.
We didn't have a stove or refrigerator, and it really was our beginning. We got, I would say, a couple of horror stories in that apartment.
But at the same time, it was where we brought home our son.
It was. So there's some highlights, and a lot of firsts.
We had our first real bills. We had our first
Christmas
place to call home.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so there's some good there. And then there's also a lot of lessons learned and what would I do different moments.
Yes. So we had a lot of horror stories in that apartment. And like you said, we had some good times as well. But some of the story time. So some of the stories that we had an AC unit. We didn't have central AC. AC unit in the window, and we had the bed underneath the AC unit. And when we turned the unit on, it would spit out water. And so it would be very refreshing and disgusting at the same time.
But we made that bad boy work.
We did. Yeah. And because we didn't have a stove, remember, in the wintertime, or an oven, in the wintertime, it was probably at that moment in our lives, it was probably the most horrific story I could possibly tell.
What are you talking about?
You know, your dad barbecued?
Oh, she said horrific. I don't know if I would describe it as horrific. It's more so humiliating. I was like, what happened?
It could be horrific and humiliating.
So my dad, he's a grill master. And so we went to his house And he barbecued us some food. So we took some to go with us. And at that time we had a cooler, and we stored our food in the cooler and then put that on the back porch, and the cooler was in the snow, so it would keep cold all night.
Right. And we lived on the second floor. So
So we were in we go out to get the food the next day to warm it up or whatever. And when we get outside, man, I noticed some little tracks in the snow leading up to the cooler. And then I opened up the cooler, and then I realized that we had gotten jacked by a squirrel.
We got jacked by a squirrel, guys.
They stole our barbecue, and you could tell it was squirrel, little paw prints that just went all the way up. And so when you at your all time low,
thank you,
and then all of a sudden a squirrel come jack you for your barbecue, bro,
for your last
barbecue, that's
you wake
tough.
up in the morning, your mouth all salivating for some barbecue.
I call that hard living, y'all. That's hard living when you getting jacked by squirrels. But what I will say, if I was to go back to that season, I think there was a few things that I would have done differently. Number one, I would say despise not the day of small beginnings. And throughout your life, I think for every revelation of your life, there's always a Genesis. There's going to be a beginning. And in that beginning, it is seed time for the eventual harvest.
Yep.
And seed time sometimes is just frustrating because you're not there yet. You're not fruitful yet. You're not as fruitful as you would like to be.
Yeah.
And for me, I know going back, I was very impatient with the place that we were in, which caused me to only think of getting out. And I don't think that I was rejoicing while in that place.
Agreed.
Like I should have been.
I think I agree with that. I also want to say in conjunction with that is like we were hoping to get out, not realizing that while we were in, we could still be free.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But I mean, back then we weren't thinking that way, right?
Yeah.
We weren't thinking that like we had a mindset, a baloney mindset that needed to shift regardless if we got out or not.
Yeah. And I think the way that going back, if I would have seen that season as seed time, I would have known that there was growth going on underneath the surface. There was stuff that God was building in our character that we didn't recognize in that moment. And in some ways, my pride hindered the growth. And I could have probably gotten out of that season faster if I would have humbled myself and recognized what that moment was. Instead of taking it like day by day and knowing that the goodness of God was in every day.
Yeah.
I think in my mind, I was like, God is good, get me out. And my mindset was to move from that place that I was in so quickly that I didn't recognize how God was uniquely blessing me. As you were saying, like in every day, the goodness of God could be found in that day.
Yeah.
And that shifts your mindset to where there's an openness to experience God and his glory, even in a small beginning.
I think the dangers of wanting to get out. And when I say get out of the environment, or get out of the mess that you may be in relationally, or getting out of the financial mess that you may be in, whatever the situation is. If you're just trying to get out without being free within first, let's just say you do make it out. Let's just say you have an open door or an opportunity for you to go to the next level or do something differently. Because your mindset hadn't changed, you're going to end up making the same mistakes. And before you know it, you'll develop this mindset of, oh, well, I can't break free, or they always bringing me down, or it always ends up like this. And it's not necessarily the situations that you're in. It's the mindset that you're carrying from one moment to the next.
Absolutely. And so going back to your small beginning, I think one of the ways that you can begin to eliminate, I'm going to call it, for me personally, it was a prideful mindset. And then secondarily, I think it was an impatient mindset. on the one hand, I was like trying to get to what I saw in my head. I saw a better future for our family. I knew we were, destined for this great thing that God has shown us. He had shown me pictures of us, our family, what the future would look like. And I was so ready to be where he showed me. But, one leader told me, he said, like, God shows you the mountaintops, but sometimes you don't see the valleys that are in between the peaks that he shows you. And I wanted to get to the peaks. I wanted mountaintops and didn't realize that there was these huge valleys. And sometimes God shows you something so big, but it's years away from where you are. Yeah. And so what are you supposed to do? Like, are you going to be miserable until you get there? Like there has to be this mindset. And I know it's going to be cheesy, but there's an attitude of gratitude, even in your small beginning. You have to know that God is in it, which means that you got to be grateful in the shotgun apartment of your business. If you got one employee, if you barely making budget for your business that you launching, if you're under budget right now, or whatever it is that you're facing, or you're at the bottom rung of the corporate ladder that you're trying to climb in this position that you want, you're in a job that you don't like. But if your mindset is not one of gratitude where you are, I believe that impatience then becomes like the dominant voicing over you, because it's like, I got to get out because I hate it here. And so
which isn't a bad thing, right? Like there's it's okay to have an unsettling in your heart, because that could be a nudge from the Holy Spirit, just kind of telling you that you are built for more.
I would call it a holy discontentment.
A holy discontentment. So he is telling you that you are created for more, and he wants you to have life abundantly. I think what we typically choose to skip is the work within. It's the unrooting the baloney mindset. And back then, man, we had a lot of them. And honestly, I think one of them was a spirit of entitlement. Like we were 18 years old, married, full family, right? And we were expecting like money to just drop and resources to just drop without putting in the work. Yeah. But then this mindset developed where it was like, I'm putting in all this work and I'm doing all this, right, and I still ain't got it. And it's like, you worked for 2 seconds.
I think for me, it wasn't even, it wasn't that I was putting in the work. It was that, and just being honest, I was praying to God, asking him for things, and I wanted him to give it. It's like you said, my mindset was more so I thought it was just going to fall from the sky. Like, okay, a great opportunity is just going to come. Money is just going to happen. And so it was like, God was like, no, bro, I gave you bologna meat. That's what you got for now.
Cook it.
Fry it. Make that the best
switch up the bread
sandwich you got. And that's what we learned to do. Because after a while, that's all we could do. And I think that now when I'm in my small beginnings, I'm just making the choice to say, well, what do I have? You know what I mean? I'm going to go in the kitchen. I'm going to look in the cupboard. And if all I got is some white bread, some mayonnaise, and some bologna meat, lunch meat is garbage. Yeah. Let's just be honest. Yeah. They mash up whatever the heck they can. They smash it together. They slice it thinly. And then they call that sustenance for your body. Can you survive off of it?
Temporarily, absolutely. Yes, you can.
It'll give me enough calories. If I keep eating this crap, it probably will hurt me. The sodium nitrates and all that ain't good, but it's enough for me to get by on. So can I eat manna in the wilderness and make it?
Yes.
And trust God with that till he brings me into Canaan? Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that all of us have a choice to say, what is this? That's what manna means. And so when they saw the manna, when they woke up in the ground, that was what God provided for that day. Didn't mean they were going to have to eat that for the rest of their lives, for the rest of their existence. And some of us are frustrated with the manna. We're looking at it like, what is this? And what God is saying is, he told them, don't collect manna for the next day, for the day after that, for the week after that.
Giving you enough.
Only get enough for that day. He would give them a specific measurement for that day. And if they got more than what their family needed for the day, then he would cause it to rot. and within their teeth. It would rot. And the lesson was God was telling them, hey, whatever I've given you is sufficient for the day.
Yeah.
Be grateful for your daily bread.
Yes.
And in that season of our lives, the daily bread was, you may not have a refrigerator, you may not have a stove, you got a roof over your head.
And you got jacked by a squirrel.
And you got jacked by a squirrel, but now you got a story that you're going to laugh about for the rest of your life. It was inconvenient at that moment. You were angry because you lost your pork chop. But now, 25 years later, that little pork chop that I was missing is okay. I'm okay. We're okay. We made it. Yeah. But in the moment, it just felt like that was the last straw. Man, we already struggling. We're going through this. We don't have this. We don't have that. But what do you have? Yeah. And I think that, I want to challenge like anybody who's in a predicament where it's like maybe you got a divorce and you starting from scratch, and you're feeling like, what do I have to do to get back to normal? Or if you're a person who is literally starting your life in a new city, a new place, and you got to rebuild with friends and so on and so forth, I want to challenge you to slow down. I know it's going to sound cheesy because we're trying to get back to or get to the next level. I want to challenge you to slow down and do something old school. I want you to count your blessings. I want you to be grateful for the blessings that you do have where you are, because it's in that spot of gratitude that humility comes. And what God can do with a humble person, He'll grace you. He'll exalt you in due time. He'll set your feet on a firm foundation. But when you're prideful, when you're ungrateful, it's kind of like we wave our fist in the face of God and saying, what you have given me today isn't enough. And
it's to insult God and to say, you didn't strategize my life well enough. Right. You didn't plan my life well enough.
Exactly.
And then there's the flip side, the other person where they're living more a life of passivity, where they are allowing life to pass them by and they're not participating in the gratitude list or even just looking at what's in their hand and saying, okay, God, how can I work with what you've given me? And I just want to speak to that person and say, you've been called for a lot more than what you see and what you've experienced. And so get up and dare to ask God to remove those limiting beliefs that you may be believing in your mindset about yourself, and just ask him, what do you see in me? Like, what greatness do I have to give to this world, to give to the people around me? Because you have been created for an amazing purpose and you're just letting it pass you by.
Yeah, I think that I was grateful over time. I became grateful for the first apartment in the hood, but I was destined for something bigger than that block. We were destined for something greater than that block.
We had a hunger.
And but to your point, we had a destiny that was bigger. Imagine if we'd have settled for life on, a drug dealer's block, because that's what it was. You know what I mean? You would hear,
y'all, I was exposed.
It'd be late at night and all of a sudden you hear these little calls on the street and stuff.
I thought it was a bird.
Nah, man.
There wasn't no bird.
These was people selling on the block and stuff like that down the street from us. Like, that was unsafe. Yeah. We did what we had to do. We made it. We survived. But that was a moment that we were meant to overcome, not build a tent in and stay in. And I think that, to your point, there are people who are have given up or are being lazy to the fullness of their potential. And so there may be a limiting belief of I can't, or I'm not good enough, or just claiming now what should have been a temporary season as a permanent dwelling. And I don't think the wilderness was ever meant to be their home. I keep referring back to Moses and the children of Israel. Yeah. So let me give context. This is the Exodus. They weren't ever meant to stay there. They were always meant to go to a promised land. But what God wanted them to do was partner with him to get all the old of where they had come from under Pharaoh's rule, that slave mindset, that old worship of man-made things, the idolatry that was in their heart. He was coming for those gods. And every miracle that he did to bring them out of Egypt and even the miracles that he did in the wilderness were all to get them to a place to where they were grateful to God. Let my people go that they may worship me, that they would honor him. And in honoring him, God would then give them their full identity. And with their healthy identity, then they would walk into the promised land.
Yeah.
So what good is you getting in the house, but you're going to lose your soul?
Exactly.
What good is it you getting a bunch of wealth, but you're going to lose your family in the process? So God wants you to advance in stages. And so the bologna sandwich season is like that it's going to keep coming back, but it just looks different in different areas. Yeah. In one place, your career starts here. But then anybody who's ever built anything over time, you know that you keep almost like reinventing. There's a new version of you. There's a new version of having to trust God again in a foreign place or in a place that feels tight or restricted. And then in that place, you have to discover all over again, like what it means to be challenged, and know that the challenge that you're facing externally is giving you an opportunity to begin to reflect internally and say, God, where are you showing up in this moment? And how should I begin to savor your goodness and the goodness that you have given me in this place? And if it's bologna, I'm going to fry it. I'm going to sear that mug. It's going to taste delicious. I'm going to thank you for it. And yet, where are we going next, Lord?
Yes.
Where are we off to next? Because I know this isn't forever. I thank you for where I am, but I know this ain't the long term that you have for us in our life.
Yeah. It's getting to a point to where you can see what God sees. Mm-hmm. Right. And so like vision was huge for us. Once and again, we didn't come out, right? Overnight. This was a day by day, step by step, decision by decision that led us to spiritual freedom and inner healing and all the things. But I would say one of the things that helped us was vision and feeding that vision, right? So example, we lived in that shotgun apartment, but even when our mindset wasn't changed or converted yet, we went to home development areas and we would walk around in newly built homes and just imagine, one day we could live in something like this. And one day we can live something like this. In our marriage, we tried to find mentors because it was like, if we're ever going to come out, we need to have a good vision. We need to have a good picture of what a healthy marriage looks like. So on April the 9th, we're actually hosting a online vision workshop. It's absolutely free. It's going to be on YouTube, but you have to register. So make sure that you register. The link is going to be in the show notes. So make sure you do that. Y'all. But
it's going to be real good. When I say that we're going to help you dream and develop a vision for your life, and we're going to show you the steps that help you to gain clarity. And it doesn't matter if you're starting over, if you're older, if you're younger, vision is always essential. And I believe that when people lose vision, we stumble all over ourselves, the scriptures would say. And so this is going to be a really, really, really powerful moment. So make sure y'all register for that.
Yeah. Yeah. But that was one of the things that we did. And it wasn't the complete answer. It was part of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you don't have a dream, hope deferred makes the heart sick. I think you have to have something to hope for. But there's the tension of godliness with contentment is great gain. So there's this, I am grateful, God, where I am. I am grateful for who you are and the person that you've made me to be.
Yeah.
See, all of that's healthy. Mm-hmm. Then there is this mindset that says, like Joshua and Caleb, but God, if you promised us Canaan, then we are well able to do it as long as you go with us.
Yeah.
So there is this desire to say, well, what are the options? What is it that you want us to go out and possess? Mm-hmm. And that may be you going from being, an employee to an entrepreneur. That may be you starting to budget to growing to a place to where you have multiple investments and you own multiple properties, whatever that is, that may be an average marriage, and growing into a really healthy marriage. And then you're going to have to make those investments to get to that next level. So when we were walking around looking at those houses that we could not afford,
please,
and, thinking about places that we potentially could live in, while we were in a shotgun apartment, it was to stir our appetite for the good things that God would have for us in our future. And that is one part of the story I would not want to rewrite. I love that part of the story. I'm like, that's what challenged us to dream big. And later on, it's still that helps us to sit with great leaders in any realm. I mean, we've sat down with multimillionaires. We've sat down with business owners and of multiple companies. We've sat down with people on different continents where we're talking business and strategy and scaling. And we're able to do it because we are able to envision, to dream forward. And so that is a gift. And it's so funny that gift began in the bologna sandwich season.
It did. I'm so glad you brought this up, because I was thinking, like, it's in the bologna sandwich season that we were able to walk into that apartment and see chaos, but yet envision life. Like, and that's the duality perspective you were talking about. It was, I'm not in denial of my reality, and I am grateful for where I am, but I also know that there's more. And so it was, and that mindset has really carried us through to where, years later, like, who builds a church from a tattoo shop?
Right. And we did it.
And it was a beautiful building, and it was gorgeous. And not just the building itself, but the community life and the people within it were just as beautiful. And so it's like, if you allow, the bologna sandwich season can teach you, will take you rather down a pathway of resentment and bitterness and entitlement, or you can lean into God and it can teach you how to have vision in the middle of chaos.
Yeah. So my encouragement to everybody is to write out, and you can do this daily. It's actually great for anxiety. 3 things that you're grateful for in that day. What are 3 things that you're grateful for in that day? Going back, had somebody sat me down and I wasn't arrogant, and I would have listened to that one instruction, it would have changed everything, because I would have seen the goodness of God in a space that was temporary, but very uncomfortable. I could have learned to have a sense of gratitude while I was growing. And I think that the worst seasons of my life were the ones where it was designed by God to grow me, but I was ungrateful for it.
Yeah.
And it just made the whole situation worse. My pride was in the driver's seat, and that tension of being patient while God has you in process, it requires a praise. That's pretty dang good. And so
repeat that.
When you're in process and God is taking you through it, and I don't know what else I said. It was another P, but when you're in pain, you're in process, you need a praise. I think that's what I said. We're going to find out. Y'all listen to it. But both of them, if I said it differently, both of those are good.
You said patience. You have to be patient first.
I don't know what I said.
Then the second time around,
but y'all know what I'm saying, and that's the truth. So last point is, I would challenge you to write down 3 things that you're grateful for in the day, and then I would challenge you to say, what is the one thing that I am believing God for in this moment?
That's good.
What is the one thing I'm believing God for in this moment? So, and that's not begging him. That's not forcing his hand to do it, but it is just saying, what's your Isaac, Abraham, and Sarah? What is the thing that is a promise from God that by faith you are believing that it is going to arrive? I would challenge you to say, how can I honor that promise while having a praise and staying in the bologna sandwich season and being faithful over little, so that God can make you ruler over much?
That's good. That's good. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Listen, we don't want to just share content just between Sean and I, but we really want to hear from you. So make sure that you leave a comment, that you rate us, that you let us know maybe what your bologna sandwich is, and you're identifying those limiting beliefs. But whatever you got to do, reach out to us, subscribe, share it, and we'll see you next week on the Baloney Podcast.